I think it's so funny this month of October. If we have any guests or any new people, what a great and horrible series to walk into. I am yet to find any other church that has a weird video like that, or a skull or crossbones or anything in their sermon series title. So grateful that you're here today, and although our topic today is going to be unusual, I hope that you leave here what we're already starting to feel. I hope you share that feeling I just felt in worship, just like the presence of God here, beckoning us to be better people who love like Him. So I pray that you're open as we jump into this today. I've been reflecting a lot on this the last, not just couple weeks, but probably the last 8 months as I have a kid now. And the question I've been trying to wonder is, what has made me into who I am today? Who is my maker, right? And not just in like a big existential way, but like on a daily basis. What is making me into whoever I am? And when I was younger, I had this great title, and I loved it. I had so much pride in it. It made me even cockier as a little kid. I remember teachers started calling me a ringleader. And I remember the first time, actually, I went to a little private school, and I remember my Bible teacher was the first one to call me a ringleader. And when the Bible teacher calls you something like that, you're like, well, at my age of like 8 or 9 or 10, I thought, oh, what an honor, what a joy. What I didn't know was that he was kind of insulting me. Like he was kind of saying, all these kind of little things keep happening with all the other students, and you're the one behind it. And I started to put together like, oh, ringleaders like drug ringleader or crime ringleader. So it wasn't good. It wasn't a compliment. He was trying to give it to me. But I remember finding out and kind of trying to connect the dots. What is making me a ringleader? And one of the first stories I can think of is second grade. Second grade, Mrs. Schultz's class, Xenia, Ohio, and at the end of her class, she was one of the best teachers. Oh, there I am. Look at this. Look at that kid. Oh, look at that mullet. Look at that. Fun fact, when I came here 8 months ago, I was kind of regrowing the mullet a little bit, and people said they wouldn't listen to me if I didn't cut it off. So Mrs. Schultz's class, second grade, she at the end of the year would raffle off a lot of her posters and little things that she didn't need that she would have to buy new the next year. And man, I was focused in on this one thing. She'd raffle it off to all the students, and I thought, you know what? Not only am I picking the thing that I really want, I'm also picking the item nobody else is thinking to pick, and that item was sticky tack. I was so excited when she was raffling off everything. People were like, I want the poster, I want this, I want that, and I thought, you idiots. The best thing, the thing that holds this classroom together is the sticky tack, literally. It literally holds everything together. She starts to do the raffle. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. We don't have to keep my cute face up here. I appreciate that, Shell. That's very kind. But I remember as the raffle started, I thought, here it comes. She's going to say it. Nathaniel Laha, Nathaniel Laha, Nathaniel Laha. And when the time comes, she says, Cole Zabrowski. And I thought, are you kidding me? Cole Zabrowski? Cole Zabrowski is a country kid. He's a little cowboy boy. He doesn't need sticky tack. He wants, I don't know, a lasso or spurs or something. Sticky tack's for me, not Cole Zabrowski. And I was so frustrated. I was devastated. You can hear it in my voice today. I'm still devastated. And I didn't care that Cole's name was called because I, the ringleader, the arrogant little 8, 9, 10-year-old that I was, even though Cole's name was called, even though the teacher had picked Cole to get the sticky tack, that was a farce. It was untrue. I knew the truth. The truth was I was destined to have that sticky tack, and Mrs. Schultz and Cole and the universe had just spoken it wrong, and I had to make things right and enter my ringleader capabilities. So I remember going around, and I don't even remember like planning it and plotting it. It just, and this is what's scary, like what made me into the kid I'm about to describe. I didn't even think about my plot of like lying and misleading and manipulating. I just thought, I'm going to start asking people what they got because I need to eventually get to the sticky tack fiasco, okay? So I started asking, like, hey, what'd you get? I don't care, right? But I'm asking, hey, what'd you get? Oh, that's so cool. Cole got the sticky tack. And they're like, oh, yeah, what's this? I guess. And then I'd say, I started saying this after I'd asked people and they thought I was interested and I wasn't. I'd start to say after that, Cole, there's this rumor going around, I heard, that Cole is going to give me his sticky tack after school. He doesn't even want the sticky tack. And I started saying this enough times that then I started hearing it from other students. Like, hey, Nate, aren't you getting the sticky tack later? I was like, I guess I am. So I had started this whole, this is really, I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old, and this is the first instance I can remember. What a devious little mullet-wielding child. What kind of kid does this? And at lunch, before lunch, I told one of my friends, Nick, I said, hey, Nick, I'll save you a seat if you go get that sticky tack that Cole promised me. Cole has no idea. And so at lunch, I saved the seat for Nick. In comes Nick. He has the sticky tack in hand that Cole apparently is going to give to me anyway. And the whole day goes by. Cole doesn't say a word. Mrs. Schultz doesn't say a word. Nobody says a word. The sticky tack is mine. And after school even happens. I'm in the after-school daycare, and I'm waiting. It's like 30 minutes till my grandma's going to come pick me up, and I am home free. I'm scot-free. Instead of my grandma walking in, Mrs. Schultz comes in. What is she doing there so late after school, and why is she asking me to come to her office? I had been ratted out, which is a ringleader's nightmare. That's the last thing you want as a ringleader. You don't want it traced back to you. I was young. I was naive, okay? Anyway, I had found out that my second grade, longtime girlfriend, Brianna, had ratted me out to the teacher. She couldn't take the guilt of being the ringleader's girl, and so she's just ratting me out. That was it for me and Brianna. But anyway, I remember that when I got ratted out, I remembered thinking, this is why I've got to get better at this ringleading thing. And the thing as I'm evaluating this today, 25 years later, I'm thinking about why did I do that in the first place? And why has so much of my life I have actually leaned into that natural ability to, now I'm trying to use it for good as a pastor, obviously, right? Where I bring us all together and we're all trying to accomplish this mission of loving one another well and loving God well and receiving His love well. But man, I used my powers for evil for far too long. And this is what it was. My ringleader drive was that I knew what I knew. I wanted something to be so true. It wasn't even a question of whether or not it was true. What I wanted was the highest truth, was the supremest thing. And so I would do everything to get that to come to fruition. And even more than that, a ringleader is different from just anybody committing crimes, right, in second grade or wherever. A ringleader knows that the best way to get their evil task done, to get things accomplished, to get the thing that you know is true and you need it to come to fruition, the best way to do that is to rope in other people along with you. The question basically is, how do you get the bad thing accomplished and get others to do it for you? Listen to that. How do you get this bad thing accomplished that you want to happen, and how do you basically just get other people to do it for you? Today we're talking about, and we're inevitably going to come to this topic, guys. Today we're talking about the devil and or Satan. And this is where I meant, it's a weird series, but I want to talk about this. This is a ringleader. This is perhaps the best ringleader. And how it started is where I want to get to, because I think, and this is going to be a weird line, I think you're going to find we have a lot more in common with this mythological character, this creature, this being that we talk about all the time, or at least in church has been rumored about, right? But we need to really talk about what's the drive, what's the motive behind it. In the Hebrew, the word devil means adversary or slanderer. In the Greek, Satan means the one who opposes, the one who pushes against. And what I'm trying to get us to is, I hate trying to think of this red-skinned, pitchfork-wielding, horn kind of creature and think more that, man, whatever this devil, this Satan is, whatever it is, what got it to that point? What I'd argue today, and we'll get there, is that the devil, the Satan, whatever you want to call it, is one of God's creations, like us, that was consumed by a selfish idea. How do you get the thing and get others to do it for you? How do you get that thing that you know is true, even though God, even though everything has said that's not true? I think Satan, the devil, was consumed by an idea and was going to do anything and everything to get that accomplished, to get that to come to fruition. And everybody else is affected by that too. And so I asked the question, this is how we start today. What selfish self-elevation has infected you? This, Grace Church of the Nazarene, this is sin. Because it starts off as just an idea, right? I need the sticky tack. The sticky tack is mine. I need to be this thing. I need to, and nothing is going to get in my way in accomplishing that. That, we can describe the devil, we can describe Satan that way. We can describe so many of us that way, that we will stop at nothing to get the thing that we know is true, even though God, even though everything is saying that's not the way it should be or it needs to be. Sometimes it doesn't matter. When we are so enveloped in sin, we have to have this selfish self-elevation that puts us above everybody else's needs and desires and even state of being to have this thing accomplished for us. Now, I don't want you to be confused. The devil, even in the name, right? This is an adversary. This is one opposed to God. So this is not our friend. I'm not trying to sing through a message sympathy for the devil, right? That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I am trying to do is that we have quite a few things in common. And sometimes I think that this is how the devil, the Satan, has gotten kind of just poured into more myth and mythology than an actual being, because so many of us are representing the same way that it or he lives and exists. We have these selfish desires, and we will do anything to accomplish them, to elevate ourselves, to see them through. And at that point, it doesn't even matter if the devil is out in the open or not, because so many of us are doing the same exact thing. I hope you have three things today as we jump in. I hope you have a Bible. If you don't, we have free ones at the back. I hope you have something to take notes with. A phone is fine, but I just don't want you to be distracted if you're on Twitter or whatever. And then the final thing, and this is probably the most important, is openness. Openness that there is something in us that is like the evil one, like this grand character of old, right? And that we've got to let God do something about that. I'm going to pray, and then we'll jump right in, okay? Lord, I pray that you'd lead and guide us this morning. I pray that you'd be with us like you have been, and be with us in a new way. I mean, help us to see what is reality. Help us to see not just what this character is, this thing that you created that has gone wrong, but also show us what within us was supposed to be aligned with you, was supposed to be loving well, and has started to just pour into selfish desires. Pull that out of us. Pull that out of us, Lord, and make us more like you. It's in your holy name I pray you bless this message. Amen. Our ending today, we'll eventually get to, I don't think it's John. One second. I think it's 1 John. No, it's John, just the book of John. I reference 1 John. That's where I'm confused. Disregard me processing in front of you right now. We'll be in John chapter 8 eventually, and so you can kind of get there, but we got to set a bunch of stuff up first, so it's going to be a little bit. We've been walking through the scripture again and again and again. This has been kind of like our realigning point throughout this whole series. In Ephesians, Paul is reminding the church, you're at each other's throats, you hate one another, you want to kill one another. And Paul stops this whole encouragement and says, you need to remember this struggle that we are all feeling, the tension we feel within our hearts, our souls, our churches. This is not flesh and blood, but there are infected rulers, infected authorities, powers within this dark world, and we are against these spiritual forces of evil that are from and in the heavenly realm. So we started off our whole series with this whole idea. In the beginning, God, it was just God, and there was void. But one thing that we haven't touched base on was, before we're created, God was not alone. God was with the heavenly hosts, these spiritual beings. They were partners with God. Even in the creation account, there is conversation going on with God and other spiritual beings on how things are to be created. There is a partnership. Immediately we see that God is not a God that just yells things out and has them done. God is always partnering. And why is that? It's because God is love. And this is a thing that I hope that not just our church, but all churches are talking about all the time. It's why I won't shut up about the love well thing, because To love well is to be aligned with God and the core, the deepest core of who he is. I love what John, who we're going to read from later, says in 1 John. It's going to be up here on the screens. He has this reminder to the churches, right? Friends, let us love one another because love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. So like how I started the series, how I'm thinking about what has made me who I am today, what is making me currently. Well, look at this. Everyone who loves has been born of God and they know God and they're close to God and they hear God and they see God. Whoever does not love does not know God because God is love. Love must be in relationships. That's what love is. Love in and of itself, what is it? And so if God is love, God must be in partnerships and relationships. And that begins with the angels. And really in the creation account, we find that the penultimate of God's love and the relationship in that being demonstrated is with you and with me. God creates humanity not as like these slaves, not these people who have to love him, but he creates this partnership where we are to be stewards in this earthly realm. We are to be representatives of a place somewhere else, the kingdom of heaven here. Now we've been given great responsibility, higher than the angels. And so there is this partnership that we see right in the beginning. But the problem is in Genesis 3, like we talked about last week, it's the first citation, the first marker that partnership is broken. There's a spiritual being. In the Genesis account, it just says snake, but I tried to argue last week it's this serpent. It's this supernatural seraph. It's this angelic being that is beginning to rebel against God. And it's the first act we see that is breaking this partnership with God. And the best part about it is, even though the text says that it's clever, it's not too clever. It reveals why it's doing what it's doing in how it persuades the first humans to also break their partnership. Let's look at this real quick. In Genesis, the snake says this, look, God knows that when you eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, your eyes will be open. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. Look, the snake is showing this creature who is trying to break the partnership that God has with humans is saying why, right in the thing. Why does the snake want the human beings to break their partnership with God? Because it is under the belief, it knows what it knows, what it knows. It thinks this is true, and it won't let anything stop it, that God is not holding back the knowledge of good and evil for humanity's own good. God is hoarding. God is keeping something from us. God doesn't want us to be elevated on his level. And so look, the snake is revealing its bitterness in the question. God knows that when you do this thing he told you not to do, you'll be like him. He's scared of you. He's intimidated by you. Do you see that? There is this selfish motive, and this first ringleader is saying, we've got to be better. We've got this dream. We've got this focus. And if we can do it together, this evil plan, then we can rise above. We can be better. What selfish self-elevation has begun to infect you or has infected you? What question, what idea, what practice, what rhythm do you have right now that is not loving and it's not selfless and it's not kind or good or healthy or right or anything like God, but you keep feeding into it because it feels good and because you know it's true. You know you deserve this thing. The sticky tack was supposed to be yours. I'll let that go. But whatever that thing is in your life, we all get consumed by something. It starts off so small a lot of times. We keep coming back to that in these sermons, that it usually starts off with just the smallest little thing. What if you had this little thing? And eventually that little question, that little idea, when we don't give it over to God, but instead we hide it in darkness and we feed it because it makes us feel better and we know, it would elevate us, it would make us bigger. And it starts off as something small and it eventually grows into something that consumes us completely. I think this idea of elevating ourselves, especially to God-like status, where we are the one making the call instead of God somewhere far, far off, right? It's intoxicating. I mean, that question, that's why it took over the snake or whatever that creature is in the garden. It's why it took over the first human beings. And it's why it constantly beckons you and I to do the same thing. What selfish self-elevation has began to infect you? So let's get to the devil or the Satan. And this is where I say, like, these things, these questions that start in darkness, hidden, secret, and we grow them. That's what this creature, this being, the devil or Satan, is referred to multiple times. By the prophet Isaiah, it's referred to as this, as like a sea dragon, the Leviathan, the gliding serpent, the coiling serpent, the monster of the sea. This is not something that kids have a plush animal of at night. This is a terrifying creature. And other times in the Old Testament, it's referred to as a venomous snake, like in the garden. And it's referred to as a venomous scorpion in the Psalms, I think it is. These are not creatures that go around and make the world better necessarily. These are creatures that hide in darkness, waiting for their moment to strike and infect other creatures so that they can rise above them. This is sin, this is sinful creatures, and this is at the core of what the devil or the Satan does. It hides in darkness, it stabs a little bit of an infection of a question of what if you were higher, what if you were better, what if you were greater, what if the thing you wanted you could have right now. You'd have to disregard God, but you could get the thing that you know that you deserve. In researching for this sermon, I don't know how I got here, but I did get here. 2016, there was 3 world records set for the most dominoes ever pushed. I'll get to how that connects here in a second. I had the video and everything. I took it out because it's like, what are we talking about? But the point is this. 3 world records were set in 2016 for the most dominoes pushed over. Do you know how many? It took them 2 weeks to set up the whole thing. Do you know how many dominoes were pushed over? You're either going to guess way too high or way too low. 40,000, over 40,000 dominoes. I've tried to set up 30 dominoes and I can't do it. 40,000 dominoes. When people ask about whether or not is the devil real or is the Satan real, you usually have extremes, like of course he's real, or nah, it's just a made up thing. Here's the thing. Somebody had to start these infecting questions. Somebody had to be the one that pushed the first domino. Somebody has to do it. These questions, these pulls away from God do not just happen out of nowhere. Somebody had to make the first move. And so I want to set us up with that. I know this is not what this sermon is about. Is the devil real? Is the Satan real? Let's just say this is the one time I'll kind of put that question. I believe it is. Because someone had to make that first move. Someone had to ask that first question. What if I didn't do what God called me to? What if I didn't love well? What if I loved myself instead above all other things? I want to talk through what these words mean. The Satan actually is in the Hebrew. I think I flipped them at the beginning of the service. In the Hebrew, Satan means one who obstructs or opposes. Now, here's what's interesting. The title Satan is not necessarily a bad thing. Get this. The angel of the Lord, this ambassador for God working in the world, in the book of Numbers, is actually called a Satan because there are kings who are rebelling, prophets who are rebelling against God, and the angel of the Lord is a Satan, an oppressor, one who obstructs these evil people. That's a little bit of a mind blower. There's even kings that are in the Old Testament, and God calls them Satans. Now, he doesn't call them the Satan, but he calls them Satans. We just need to pull ourselves away from that Satan is the name of the devil. Satan is a title, is an adjective. But there is a difference. There is this, in the Hebrew, it's this phrase, these letters that are put before Satan, and it's ha, which does not mean ha ha ha. It means the Satan. There is a Satan. There is a singular creature. And in the Greek, the word, it's where we get devil, is diabolos. And it means the adversary. It means the slanderer, the one who says things for selfish gain, lies for selfish gain. Here's what's interesting too. Much like the word Satan, it's not referred just to the devil. I think it's Jesus, but at least the apostles call people who are in the church spreading lies and spreading gossip, calls them diabolos, calls them devils. So these characteristics, devil, Satan, these titles are not just reserved for the Satan or the devil. We all, at different times in our lives, and I'm saying this, and you already know it, so I'm sorry for highlighting it, but we at different times, what are we more like? Are we like Jesus? Are we like the Creator? Or are we more like the Satan? Are we more like the devil? So much so that, like in the Old Testament and New Testament, we would be called those things. The one who is opposed, the one who obstructs goodness and love, or the adversary to God's good ways. We need to ask ourselves those questions, because if we don't, I bet you something is overtaking us and infecting us. And here's the thing too. If I was to go to that 2016 world record thing, right? And let's say, like, after it's all done, there's the 40,000, and I'm really like painting this hypothetical picture. I'm helping them clean up everything. Just go with me for a second. Could I tell the first domino that was pushed from the 70th or the 7,000th? Or we so often are just mimicking what was rebelling before us. And I hate that. I hate that there's no uniqueness to that. When we obstruct or oppose God, we look just like the one who started it all. We look just like the first domino, and there's got to be a better way to live. Jesus in John, here we go, we finally arrived. John chapter 8, Jesus describes the difference between those who are dominoes in God's kingdom and dominoes who are aligned with something much more sinister, much more ancient, much more evil. John chapter 8, and we'll start at verse 31. Buckle up. If you're already tired, just go ahead and go to sleep. Everybody else who's still with me, let's dig in deep, because this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And Jesus does not hold back his punches here. Those are my favorite times of reading Jesus. So John chapter 8, verse 31. He's being confronted by a bunch of people who think that Jesus is rebelling against the God of the Old Testament. And there are other Jews here who are believing in Jesus. And to the Jews who had believed in him, Jesus says this, if you hold to my teaching, you really are my disciples. And we found out earlier, we've said this before, church, when Jesus is asked what is the greatest commandment, what fulfills all of them, it's to love well, right? If you have loved like I've loved, you are my disciples. Verse 32, then you'll know this truth, the gospel, and that gospel, that truth will set you free. Loving like God and loving like Jesus is what sets us free. That's the truth. Humble, generous, overwhelming love. Verse 33, here's where the Jews start to, and this is us, church. This is us so often when we're called out. We start making all these other claims, right? Verse 33, the Jews answered him, we are Abraham's descendants. We have never been slaves of anyone. How can you, Jesus, say that we shall be set free? You feel that animosity right there? Jesus is trying to encourage them, and they're saying, who are you to say that we even need to be set free? Who are you to say that we're slave to anything, that we're infected by anything that's not of God? Verse 34, Jesus replied, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins, rebels, lies, slanders, is a slave to sin. Even the smallest of those makes us shackled again. Verse 35, a slave has no permanent place in the family of God, but a son of God or a daughter of God belongs to it forever. So if the Son of God sets you free, verse 36, you will be free indeed. And he said already how you're set free, right? To know the truth and to live into it, to love other people. Verse 37, I know that you're Abraham's descendants, yet you're looking for a way to kill me because you have no room for my word. Verse 38, I'm telling you what I have seen in the Father's presence, the Creator's presence, Abba, and you are doing what you have heard from your Father. Now see that in verse 38, it's different. Jesus is saying, I'm telling you what I have heard from the Father God. And then look at that second line. This is haunting because this is us at times. But you are doing what you have heard from your Father. So not just their earthly father, but something else, more sinister, more evil. And he gets to that in a second. The Jews say this, Abraham is our father. And Jesus says this is beautiful. If you were Abraham's children, then you would do what Abraham did. But as it is, you are looking for a way to kill me, destroy me, silence me. A man who has just told you the truth that I have heard from the Creator. Abraham didn't do those kind of things. You're not acting like the domino of Abraham. You're acting like something else. You're in a different line of succession. Verse 41, you are doing the works of your own father. There it is again. And then look at them. They're getting more irate. We are not illegitimate children, they protested. The only Father, the only God we have is God himself. And Jesus says, if God were your father, your leader, you would love me because I have come here from that Father. I've not come on my own. God sent me. Why is what I'm saying, this language of love, this truth, not clear to you? Because you're unable to hear what I say. And then here is the biggest drop of all. And church, I need you to hear this because as Jesus spoke to these people 2,000 years ago, he speaks to you now. Verse 44, you belong to your father, the devil, the slanderer, the adversary, and you want to carry out that father's desires. And this devil, this character was a murderer, a destroyer from the beginning, not holding to the truth of love. And there is no truth, there is no love in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language because he is a liar. And he's the father, the beginning of lies. Jesus says, yet because I tell the truth, you do not believe me or hear me or understand me. Can any of you prove me, Jesus, guilty of sin? If I'm telling the truth, why don't you believe me? Why do you want to kill me? Verse 47, whoever belongs to the true Father hears what he says. The reason you don't hear is that you don't belong to God. I want to skip to verse 54, and we're almost done. You guys have basically read the whole Bible, okay? Verse 54, Jesus replied, look, if I elevate myself, my glory means nothing. But my Creator, my Father, who you claim is your God, He is the one who brings the kingdom through me, glorifies me, lets me love. Though you do not know Him, I know Him. If I said I didn't, I would be a liar like you. Okay, Jesus is really swinging. But I do know Him, and I do follow His word. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day here on earth, and he saw it and he was glad. And look, they're even more mad. You're not yet 50 years old. You haven't seen Abraham. Very truly, I tell you, before Abraham was born, I am. And at this, they picked up stones to kill him. Look at this. You have the Son of God, not just loving them by telling them the truth, but do you see their visceral reaction? They're so hostile. And a lot of times the hardest thing, if you're a ringleader or a liar or a deceiver or selfish or angry or bitter, one of the most hurtful things at first is to have truth and love spoken to you. I cannot tell you how many times I have talked to people, and we've touched base on this multiple times, but we talk about demonic possession, evil possession. I'll tell you this, and my wife and I can both attest to this. We have loved as deeply and as selflessly as we can, and the deeper people are in it, it's like talking to a different person. They react like these Jewish. Shell and I have never been on the edge of being stoned by people, but man, when you speak love, when you speak hope, when you speak the truth to people who are consumed by the opposite of it, by something adverse to the kingdom of God, the reaction is not, thank you, I appreciate it. It's not that at all. It's usually there's this tension because they've been infected and fed by something for so long, they've transformed into something else. And Jesus says it's not just that they've been transformed, but they've been adopted by someone else. There is a Father who is feeding them a different way to live and exist, and they're just eating it up because it feels good. It feels self-elevating. And church, my call to you is the call that Jesus had to these people who thought that they were on the right path. And what Jesus calls us to is to say, okay, I need to be open in front of my God and just for a moment say, maybe what I'm feeding, what I'm eating, who I'm following, maybe isn't right. Even me as a pastor, or maybe even especially me as a pastor, I need to be doing this. And I do. I don't always get it right, and it's not always like this big supernatural thing. But every day, I'm constantly going to God, making this inventory and saying, God, what in here is infecting me in the worst of ways? What in me is not of you? What in me is being pulled towards a different maker, a different Father, a different way of living? Jesus says, if you hold to my teaching, if you love well, you are my disciples, my children, and you'll know the truth. And the best line of all, whatever you're in right now, Jesus says the truth, the love, the kingdom of God will set you free. So many of us are captive to something horrible and ancient. We are in a long line of dominoes that started far before we were born. This is not just a generational curse. This is something huge and dangerous. And we've got to stop fearing the world, fearing what would happen if we let go of this is the last time, if we let go of our sticky tack. If we let go of the thing that we think, this will make us complete. This is the thing I need and I deserve it. Look how hard I work. Look at my life. Here's a grand thing, and I'll have the band come back up. Here's the thing. What we deserve is something quite horrible in our rebellion, in our adversity against God. And what does Jesus offer to us? Freedom, love, grace, kindness, when we do not deserve it, when we've been opposed to Him for so long. Today I want to ask you, who is your maker? Who is creating you into who you are and who you will be? And not just that, but church, we need to remember that when we self-elevate, right? When we feed into these selfish things, we are not just the last domino in the line of evil, of sin, of the devil, the Satan, the opposer, the obstructor, the adversary, the slanderer. We are not the last domino. We continue this path of hurt and pain and destruction. Would it not be amazing grace? Would it not be amazing if we could be a domino in a different kind of kingdom? A domino in a different way of living. A domino in a different family. If we would allow ourselves to be removed from a lineage that just brings more pain and more frustration and more bondage to not just you, but those who will come after you. And instead, we would not just hear what Jesus says, that you could be set free, but imagine this, broken, fragile, finite, simple people could go from being the people who are slandering to go to being the people who are repairing. We could go from being the people who are murdering and destroying to being the people who are healing and loving and bringing hope to a world that is just angry and bitter and infected by something else. I came from a clan of people who were, and so many of them still are, angry and bitter because they know what they know. They're not set free. And so I, like you, have got to constantly ask myself, what has me still in bondage? What am I still feeding into that I'm afraid to have Jesus speak truth into? Because I'll have to let it go. The beauty of the kingdom is when we let go of those final things, right? We let go of these final things that we're convinced will make us complete. We lose that thing, but we also are set free. Let go. Let go today. I haven't told the band what to sing. I'm not sure if they even know what to sing yet. Good luck to them, right? Sorry about that. Yeah. Let the Spirit lead. I want to invite you to stand if you're able. We've all got something. I know you do. And if it's not fully embodied yet, it's coming. Something that is not of God, that is slowly infecting you. A little idea, a little thought, a thing you're convinced of that you need. Here's what you need. The love of God. You need the truth of God. A truth that will not just set you free, but will set all those around you free. Will set those who are coming after us free. Will change a trajectory that seemed like it was just headed for death and more destruction, and instead to a life that is eternal and full and whole and being healed. Won't you join that today? It's so simple. Those who live out my truth are my disciples, Jesus says. Those who love well, those who spread that love are my disciples, my children. Whatever you have today, you can be at your seat, you can be at the altar, whatever you need. Do not leave this place. Do not leave this place without letting go. Respond as you feel like you need to.